27 years after first hitting the Super Nintendo, Super Mario RPG is back and ready to get a brand new facelift on the Nintendo Switch. With the remake coming out on Friday, I was curious what critics thought about this unlikely mashup back when it first came out in 1996. Was this the role-playing event of the year or a massive misstep from two industry giants? To answer that question, I decided to flip through the pages of Electronic Gaming Monthly, Next Generation, Game Fan, and more classic magazines to see what the critics said back when Super Mario RPG was first released. It may not be part of an online subscription service, but this is a Super Mario Enhanced episode of Nintendo Switch Review Crew.
All was peaceful in the Mushroom Kingdom.
Till Smithy the Sword shattered the sorrow. Wow! So with his old enemy Bowser and a marshmallow throws lightning. Mario fought evil wedding cakes and the killer Venus flytraps and recovered the seven stars!
That was freaky.
Super Mario RPG, only on the system that keeps on kicking. Super NES.
Dig it?
If you did a double take when Super Mario RPG was first announced, then you weren't the only one. Released in 1996, this was a time right before Japanese role-playing games went mainstream. While the success of Final Fantasy VI, or 3 as we called it here, had pushed the turn-based genre forward, there was just no getting around the fact that to most Western gamers and critics, role-playing games were a niche product made for a certain kind of audience. Mario, on the other hand, was simple and fun and the kind of platforming hero that anybody could love. The idea of these two worlds colliding was legitimately shocking, as many openly wondered just how much of an overlap there was between the average Mario fan and the Final Fantasy players. Obviously, looking back at it now, the pairing makes complete sense. This would be the first of many Mario adventure games, and even fellow platforming heroes like Sonic the Hedgehog got their own RPGs. If anything, this unlikely pairing introduced a lot of new players to the exciting world of role-playing games, helping to set the table for the genre's mainstreaming just 1 year later. Now, when it comes to the reviews, the critics were all over the place. Between the skepticism of the mashup and Mario fatigue, you get the feeling that every critic brought their own type of baggage before reviewing Super Mario RPG. Let's go ahead and use Electronic Gaming Monthly as an example. Fake Ninja Sushi X liked the game, but found himself sick of seeing a certain plumber. Besides being completely overused, I feel like Mario should just take a vacation until the Nintendo 64 gives him a new home. Mario RPG uses great in-combat graphics and continues Nintendo's tradition for clean animation and worthwhile visuals. But I feel like the characters and the game base are a bit too childish for the demanding play and difficult battles against the hordes of opposing forces. If you can overlook these childish tendencies, Mario RPG will satisfy the majority of players with the enjoyable combat system and the many twists and turns in the plot. Mark, on the other hand, called the game a masterpiece. Mario RPG combines the role-playing elements of Final Fantasy with the world of Mario flawlessly. The graphics are the best seen on the Super Nintendo, with a combination of rendered characters with a complement of drawn sprites. All of these elements help to make this game outstanding, but where it really shines is with its plot. The 3/4 perspective takes a little getting used to, but it allows for a whole new level of puzzles. I can only hope the Nintendo 64 Mario is this good. EGM gave Mario RPG an average score of 8.75 out of 10. Believe it or not, the rest of the magazines were just as split as Electronic Gaming Monthly. You ended up seeing a lot of scores in the 80% range, such as Nintendo Power giving Super Mario RPG a score of 4.1 out of 5. For their part, Superplay gave the game an 81%, placing it as the magazine's 181st best-reviewed Super NES game of all time, tightly wedged right between Breath of Fire 2 and Dragon's Lair. And then there's the notoriously grumpy Next Generation, who gave the game 4 stars out of 5 and came up with their own set of critiques. Successfully blending action elements with a reasonably complex storyline and battle strategies, Mario RPG is the perfect introduction to the world of RPGs. While it would be impossible to successfully argue that Mario RPG maintained the complexity of most role-playing games, it is deep enough to command the concentration of even the most seasoned RPG fan. On the other hand, it's not so difficult to alienate non-RPG fans. Thanks to the consideration given to both genres, a rare feat, Mario RPG is truly an attractive title for most gamers. Of course, there were a lot of magazines that gave this unusual pairing a much higher score. For example, you saw Game Players going as high as a 91%. Game Fan was even more enthusiastic about the game, giving it a 97%. Waka may have been one of those critics who gave Super Mario RPG a near-perfect score, but he was a little confused. How did Square squeeze all of this joy into a tiny little cart? With SGI graphics and Square and Nintendo behind the wheel, you can't possibly go wrong with Super Mario RPG. With games of this quality still coming out, I'm beginning to wonder if 16-bit will ever die. E-Storm agreed, arguing that Mario RPG is not only everything that a Nintendo Mario game should be, but everything a Square RPG should be as well. The two combined equal a game that can only be described as legendary. As always, if you're looking for the highest score, then look no further than GamePro, who gave Mario RPG a perfect 5 out of 5. This fun, intriguing role-playing game should please die-hard RPG fans as well as novice players. Once you pick this one up, you're hooked. Mario lives up to his super status once again. Now this is one of those situations where the critics of today might actually give it higher scores than those at the time. I feel like a lot of the issues brought up in these reviews, such as Mario fatigue, role-playing game skepticism, and concerns about it being too kiddie, are all no longer applicable, especially now that role-playing games are so commonplace. It'll be interesting to see how the critics and gamers of 2023 react to the new Super Mario RPG remake. Hey, thanks for watching me break down these classic reviews. If you liked what you saw here, then you should know that we post new episodes just like this every time Nintendo adds classic games to their subscription service. Or, in this case, when they remake one of their classic Super NES titles. We have a whole playlist with dozens of episodes just like this one. Now, here's the question I have for you. What Nintendo game is in most need of a remake? Nintendo has recently given us remakes of Minish Cap and now the Super Mario RPG, but there are just tons of classic Nintendo games that could use a new coat of paint, or maybe some of them that could use a big gameplay tweak. Let me see your picks in the comments below. In other news, we'll be back later this week with a review of Ebenezer and the Invisible World, followed next week with the debut of our new holiday series and the PlayStation Plus review crew. Look, November is packed, so do me a favor and click that subscribe button and support what we're doing here. Until then.